Good afternoon everyone, and welcome to the afternoon sunset safari on Wild Earth. You are on a live game drive, well in this case bushwalk safari with Wild Earth. Over there is an animal almost as tall as Brian, who is on camera. My name is James Hendry, and we are going to be walking through the wilds this afternoon, and on the other vehicle driving about seeing what he can see is Brent Leo Smith and Andrew. They are knocking about at the moment with a bull elephant, which we will take you across to very shortly. Please remember, you are on a very live safari. We love to hear from you. Hashtag Safari Live if you're tweeting away like the alarm calling rattling testicular in the distance, and also questions at WildEarthTV if you want to talk to us on the email. Now, the other thing you need to remember is that today we will be having a fireside chat at 6:30 our time, so half an hour before our normal end of drive we will have a fireside chat. Our basic theme is wild dogs. If you want to ask anything about the wild dogs or comment on any of the incredible sightings we've had of them in the last little while, especially those little pups, please send them through now. You're more than welcome to send them questions through now, or while we're actually doing the fireside chat. Now, the giraffe is coming a little bit closer to us, and what we're going to do, there's also a kudu over there, and I think what we're going to do is just see if we can't sneak a little bit closer to this fellow. He was lying down when we arrived, but when faced with someone the height of Brian, of course he felt intimidated and eventually stood up. So what we'll do is walk slowly, not at him. We're going to walk down the road, and just, well, before we do that, let's test the wind. This is a sock belonging to Scott Dyson, thankfully not Brent Leo Smith, and now everything is running at high speed because they all caught sight of the aerial, I think, on the back of the bushwalk camera. But what we'll do is we'll walk slowly up the road here and then in, around towards that giraffe. In fact, let's go this way, Brian. I think there were a whole lot more around this area, so let's just keep going through here. Now, if any of you have ever been to the bush, or been, in fact, you know what, walking in a park, it's a tremendous thing in the human psyche that we like to feel wilderness, and that's why parks and cities are so important. We so enjoy them because they give us a touch and feel of what we're experiencing here. And if you're ever fortunate enough to come out and visit us in Africa, do yourself a favor and book a walking safari of some kind on your trip. It's not a route march, it's not a great physically demanding exercise at all, unless you happen to be running away from something, but that should be avoided at all costs. This is the best way to get in touch with nature, the sound of your feet moving on the ground, the birds without the sound of an engine. And you can see the way animals react to us as human beings, to our upright posture, and that is just a wonderful thing. There's the giraffe there, hiding in amongst the trees. All right, let's go quickly across to Brent. He's got an elephant. We'll sneak around with this giraffe for a little while. Let's go across to Brent and I'll see you soon.
Welcome to Safari Live. I'm Brent Leo Smith, and it seems like I'm having a magnificent elephant day. We're actually with quite a young bull here, but if you look at him carefully, the size of his head and the size of his feet, I think he is going to be a monster, even much bigger than that beautiful boy we're with today. He's got massive feet for a relatively young animal. Now he's moving off. Not as relaxed. As you can see, I'm talking a bit more quietly. He did come right up to us, but he isn't as relaxed. And I stopped quite a lot further away from him and let him come to me. We've got Andrew Francis on camera, and unfortunately there is our western boundary. But look at the size of those feet as he walks off. And a very big, heavy head. He is going to be a very big boy. try and sneak a bit closer. And those of you who've been watching for a while, you will know you never drive directly at an animal unless we've spent quite a bit of time with them before you can judge. And I did spend some time with him before we went live, and he's not that relaxed. So give him a little bit more space, and when he's a bit older, hopefully he becomes like that beautiful Ellie we spent all that time with this morning. He's disappearing into the gory thickets of Simbambili. Try to get one last glimpse of him. And a big thank you to Jody, one of our Zoomies, who's been keeping an eye on that Ellie as he's been cavorting around the Djuma Dam Cam. And that's the magnificent big bull we spent so much time with this morning and on yesterday's sunset safari. All very relaxed now, just eating. So before we went live, I went to go check if I could see the Tsalala Pride. I can't, and I heard they have been chased by elephants during the day, and they moved to the other side of that dam wall. Hopefully they move back this way this evening. So let's go see what else we can find.
Great cruiser, how are you? Yeah, this 41 is from Ghana, and it's down there.
So we have a relatively new viewer, Matty, from the Netherlands. Aangename kennis. It's in Afrikaans, which most people from the Netherlands can understand. It's very close to Dutch. Aangename kennis means nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, Maddie. Maddie wants to know if there's a cheetah in this reserve that we can go look for. Maddie, they are, but being a big open system, the cheetah here travel incredible distances and they have very big home ranges, so we don't actually see cheetah that often. Just going to check if there's anything happening in the west. Afternoon mobile stations, any updates for Safari? My bush cell phone. Standing by. Copy, thanks very much. Any update on any Ingwe this morning? Copy, thanks very much. Saladas have moved into the Manyaleti from Sydney's. I'll let you guys know if they come back west. So no updates on Arathusa. I've got a hunch that leopard James was tracking this morning would prefer to see me this afternoon, so we're going to head towards the Buffelshoek waterhole, see if we can find some tracks. Standing by, James. They were there, but closer towards the drainage line from that junction. Negative south. is very humid today. It's 26 degrees Celsius. Oh, and I've forgotten the Fahrenheit now. 69 if I remember correctly. And there's a really 79, sorry. There's a really big thunderstorm building directly to the west. I'll turn the vehicle now so you can have a look. We're hoping it stays away for the safari, but that is not drizzle, that is proper rain. It is darkening the sky. Not going to be much of a sunset through that wall of cloud. So there we go. Look at that. There's the sun and there's that wall of cloud. So very humid at the moment. So make sure we drink our fluids. And let's go see what we can find towards the east and the north. So we've got, those who've been watching for quite a while know I really love tracking and really love tracking on foot and generally walking into anything that's possibly big, hairy and scary. And Matthew, who's 9 years old, would like to know, what is the most fun for me to track on foot, lions or leopards? I would say, oh, it's such a difficult question, Matthew. Both are equally wonderful. They both present sort of different types of walks almost. Leopard are a lot sneakier, so quite often you'll only see them when you're really close to them when you're tracking them. Lions you quite often see from quite far away, but sometimes they can sort of growl at you a little bit, and so do leopard occasionally. Oh, there's Taxon. Ninja nu. Others in Gala, I think I also went Manuleti side. Or they got chased by a clove. Yes. And then there was one clove here, but he's heading towards Sibambil.
Do you know what happened to that Matash?
They went west.
Oh,
so I haven't heard of them coming back. I think they went into Ottawa. Yeah. Hi everyone, enjoy your afternoon. Okay, so afternoon meeting over. We're going to carry on. See what else we can find. Tax is going to go double check behind the damn wall for the Salada Pride. That's Salada Pride. So I'll be listening carefully. But to finish off Matthew's question, Matthew, as I said, they both present really different things. I love tracking them both on foot. But I think for me, my most favorite animal to actually spend a lot of time with on foot has got to be a nice big Ellie bull. And Stacy, while we're talking about lions and leopards and things, is wondering if there's any word on the Birmingham boys. Well, Stacy, last I heard they crossed south into Londolozi. Maybe they're off after the Matimbas, so in that direction down there. They disappeared towards the Sand River. So we're going to cross to Commander Bond, or James, who's managed to lose the tallest animal in the bush. So he can just tell you how he managed to do that.
Hello everyone. Here we sit behind my favorite grass out here, the yellow thatching grass, Hypothelia dissoluta. You don't need to remember that. I just quite like to remember it because I feel it makes me sound clever. Hypothelia dissoluta. And in summertime it will be a beautiful golden yellow color when the culms come up. These are the culms or stalks from last year, and they've from the last rainy season, and you can just see over here some of the plants are starting to flush. Now there are two interesting things about this. The first is that when people talk about grass being eaten by animals, it's important to note that once a grass gets to this stage, this kind of strawy stage, it's almost hopeless for grazing. It's this leaf matter at the bottom here that animals eat, that they like to eat, and it's this kind of long piece of green grass that a buffalo specifically would get a hold of. A grazer that eats short grass like a wildebeest or even an impala would struggle to eat this kind of stuff, and you'd have to have a seriously efficient digestive system to eat this kind of dry material here. So that's the yellow thatching grass. Then the other thing to note is that, interestingly, we were talking about the ages of some of those roundleaf teak trees today. Grass plants can become incredibly old, and I'll show you how. Remember that if we take, let's go over this to this one here, to this clump. This grass plant here exists only like this, right, as a clump. Now, if I split this in half and take one piece away, okay, and so that it effectively becomes two grass plants. Remember, those plants are genetically identical, so they're actually the same individual, even though it's split in half. Now, if that continues to happen, you can imagine that one plant could have spawned, it's not quite clones of itself, but it's actually little pieces of itself that have grown in perpetuity. This whole clump of Hypothelia dissoluta grasses here could very well be the same individual. Now, that's quite difficult to fathom, but all of them could be from the same original clump that came into this area, and who knows how old that could be. So little pieces of it could die off, and then another piece could grow up again, and it'll be this genetically identical to the original parent plant. So we think of grasses as very short-term lived organisms. Maybe not so much. Here's a fly, Brian. Now, I'm not going to get too close to it because it will fly away, as flies do. Can you see it? Now just look at the detail on that little fly. That's a pretty bog standard issue fly, I think. I'm not too good on my flies, but I think that's the kind of fellow who will fly around your face and create a general level of great irritation. And the reason, oh, it's two flies. They seem to be caught in the act. In flagrante delictum. Look at that. Mating flies, everybody. There's something you do not see on television every day. In fact, you don't even see it off television every day. Good heavens. Not sure I'm happy about the mating, because it means they're going to make more of themselves. Isn't that amazing? They've actually got some really pretty colours too. No wonder they didn't fly off. They were otherwise occupied. So you may be able to see on them some really gorgeous colours. Golden sort of abdomen, maroon eyes, big eyes, of course the flies have, compound eyes that have an extremely fast flicker response, and that means that they're able to see things, basically they see things just a lot faster than we do, and that's why you can never hit one. Well, you can if you're really fast, but if you just try and pick one up, and unless you're Mr. Miyagi or the Karate Kid, they're quite difficult to get hold of. Very different from leopard mating, less aggression, less growling, and certainly I think probably doesn't last as long as 5 days like the mating process of the leopards. They probably just do a thorough job first time round. And let's see how close in we can get to them. The male, I'm assuming the male is on top, and their abdomens are touching. He's kind of bent his abdomen all the way around so that I suspect the wastage and sexual opening is exactly the same thing, and he's bent his abdomen round so that they are touching, and he's actually much bigger than she is. Isn't that astonishing? They're not moving at all. I wonder if they know they're being observed by thousands of people around the world. Probably not. Gee whiz. I inhaled some dust. Alright, we'll leave you chaps to it. Enjoy, Well, we won't see you later probably. We might squash you later, but we won't see you later. Okay, let's press on. Brent Leo Smith has managed to find his new best friend out here, a large mammal, very large elephant. We'll send you across to him, and we'll keep looking for these giraffe that were supposed to be here and are not. See you just now.
So we found an old friend from the last few days, and as James is saying, my new best friend, well, he's definitely far better company than a short, balding man. And he is so wonderful. We will stay with him for a little bit. He's back to this fallen down marula, and he's crunching up all the small branches. And thanks, Joe, for keeping an eye on him for me on the Djuma cam. Such a distinguished gentleman he is. Not dozing this time. Listen to that. Crunching through that little marula branch. Oh, this is... I'm in heaven, just sitting here with my new best friend. So nice to have some big bulls around. And he's definitely had a mud bath during the heat of the day, and I'm sure you guys would have been watching him on the Djuma cam while he did that. You can see there. And don't forget, guys, if the storm doesn't get us, there will be fireside chat this evening, and we're going to be chatting a little bit about wild dogs. So if you've got any questions about wild dogs, you can send them through to Final Control now. And you can do that by using the hashtag SafariLive, or use the email address questions@WildEarthTV. We seem to have quite a few new viewers, so guys, if you're not sure what a fireside chat is, every now and then we'll get together and we'll put a fire out on this open clearing, and hopefully my new friend might join us for fireside chat this evening. And we'll just chat a bit about some interesting sightings or interesting behavior that we've seen in the last week. And also, we'll be treated to James playing the guitar and singing. And with my complete tone deafness and lack of musical talent, I generally just sort of bob my head along. Occasionally James will give me a shaker, or otherwise I just make strange noises. Listen to that crunch. And as I said, he looks a little bit muddy, and Dr. Debbie has made a little comment, Brent's buddy looks a little muddy. It'll be so fantastic if he does hang around for a week or so. Can't really ask for more than that. It's been 2 days now? 3 days? 2 days.
3, I think.
2 days, 2 or 3 days that he's been around our camp. Last night he was feeding, and I could hear him feeding in front of my room. Flapping those ears to cool down. So between the 2 ears you can have just under 2 gallons of blood, and cooling it and then sending it through to the rest of the body. And that's one of the ways an elephant thermoregulates. And he has demolished that little branch. So even some trees are too tall or too big for an elephant to get at. He's got to wait for them to fall down. And you can see there, an elephant stripped the bark over there, and then wood borer beetles went in and slowly rotted and sort of compromised the structure of that marula tree till it toppled over. And now I've seen elephants, kudu and impala taking advantage of these leaves being lowered to the ground. Oh, he's going to break the branch. I mean, he snaps those branches like they're toothpicks. So, not only do elephants eat marula bark, leaves, branches, they have a particular affinity for their fruit. And Lynn, Ontario, Canada, and that, if you heard that, was a flatulent elephant. And is wondering, when do the marulas come into fruit, and why do they love them so much? Well, they come into fruit, probably first ones will be maybe middle of January, more than likely February through to March, and they have a very high vitamin C count. And not only is the flesh of the fruit very good, there's a very lovely nut inside the seed that's also quite tasty. And it just, I think elephants love them because they are tasty. There is an old wives' tale or tall story that elephants and other animals get drunk on marula fruit. That is not true. That was perpetrated by a South African filmmaker in the 70s or 80s, I can't remember when, a man by the name of Jamie Ace. And he also made some movies that some of you might have heard of, called The Gods Must Be Crazy. And the movie where the drunk animals were in was called Beautiful People. And there were drunk baboons, drunk impala, and drunk elephants. And fortunately, they weren't drunk from marula. They had been slightly sedated. Obviously, in terms of the ethics of the movie industry, has come a long way since those days. I don't think you'd get away with drugging an elephant for a movie anymore. And it was quite a common misconception, because that movie was very popular internationally. And some scientists actually went, and Makai's keeping the bark there. He's peeled the bark and he's storing it in the little nook of his trunk. Or he's keeping that branch there for when he's ready for it. And so some scientists did some actual research. So a marula fruit would have to be ripe on the ground and in the sun to start fermenting, so to speak. And it would have to be on average, I think, on the ground for something to have a reasonable alcohol content for something like 10 or 12 days. And it's very, very seldom that a marula fruit is left, as it's popular with all the animals, and so they're very seldom left on the ground. And the elephant, because they are so small, the marula fruits and the elephant would have to eat something like over 2 tons of fruit to become drunk, and it all would have to be fruit that had been sitting for the exact right time in the sun. And elephants do eat a lot. I mean, about, I think, 200 to 250 kilograms of vegetable matter in a day, but that is still a far cry from 2,000 kilograms. So not something you get to see too often is the tongue of an elephant. And Tippy in a Blue Ridge is wondering, what is the use for a tongue in an elephant? Well, Tippy, that's a very interesting question. Not one I've actually thought of, but I would assume it has very similar uses that it does in most other mammals. It is a taste organ, so to be able to taste if things are good or bad, coupled with their incredible sense of smell. I'm trying. There you go. Look, it doesn't want that piece. I'm going to store it there. I want it to go for the other piece. There we go. So, actually, really nice with this boy. We can actually look at that. So you see his prehensile tip. You see there's 2 little tips either side, sort of like tweezers almost, that can pick up things. And the Asian elephant doesn't have that. It's only got 1 little prehensile tip. So I think we're going to leave this boy to his decimation of this fallen marula, and we're going to go see what Commander Bond's up to. I think he's finally managed to find the tallest land mammal in the world. From his inferior height, sometimes it is a bit difficult.
Sorry, just excuse me 1 sec, everybody. I have been speaking for 10 seconds. Confirm delay is now enormous. Excuse me 1 second, sorry about that. Okay. Hello everybody, again. I'm not sure if you heard the first hello. We were looking at some giraffe. I don't know if you saw them or not. They've just walked off there. Let's carry on and see if we can find them. While we're doing that, Wendy in St. Petersburg, Florida, which sounds like a lot warmer place than its namesake. Wendy, you want to know how many different species of these magnificent tall animals we have? Species at this time. Sometimes these sorts of things, and they get themselves into a big twist over what constitutes a subspecies and what doesn't. And at the moment, here, the giraffe just through there, we may get a gap further down here. At the moment, Wendy, 9 of them. We only get 1 here, and that's the southern giraffe. 3 of them up in Kenya. Alright, I know the signal is a little bit bad here, so what we're going to do is just move a little bit forward. I'll be quiet and then we'll stop moving, and that should improve things.
we're on our way. I'm just going to check through Weaver's Nest area quickly before moving back to the Moati and up towards Buffelshoek. If we get nothing there, I think I might spend some more time with the gentleman giant on quarantine. So we're not sure which leopard James was following on foot this morning, the tracks. It was a male, so in that area it could possibly be two males. It could be Tingana, or it could be Mvula, who I haven't seen for quite a while. And if it's Tingana though, it doesn't really go north of that area, so I'm going on a hunch that if it was Tingana, he might have cut back down towards the Moati drainage line. So that's why I'm heading in this direction, taking sort of the long way around to get to the Buffelshoek waterhole. See if his tracks pop out around the Moati. We have one of our regular viewers and a very special viewer to a lot of us here, Gracie, who's 8 years old, was wondering, how do elephants clip their toenails? Well, Gracie, that is a fantastic question. So they don't need to clip them like we do because they don't wear any shoes. So most animals, elephants, buffalo, nails or hooves in a lot of their cases, because they move and have to walk so far between food and water, just the wear of walking without shoes on all the time causes them to stay short. So they're lucky. We've got to sit with a pair of nail clippers, and that's because we don't wear them against the ground. So just listening to the Game Drive channel. No updates. The guys are looking for those salalas. It looks like they've crossed into the Manuletti. We've got on top of the tree, there we go, making some noise, the red-billed oxpecker, and they quite often like to nest in these dead trees. I'm just stopping to see if there's a hole that they might be utilizing. And it's chirping much better from the top of the tree.
Thanks for big. There's in Ghana they move off. They're in Ghana.
Yeah. Looks like there might be gone on that down at the eastern side of there.
Oh, okay, I can't see anything more. Chirpy, chirpy, chirpy. Maybe it's looking for some buffalo or... Oh, Andrew. No. It's going to land on that. Oh, it looked like it was going to land on the sage.
What do you think?
Come on. No, don't come this close to us. And land. Where's it gone? You see it, Andrew?
This side.
Is it that side? Oh, there it is. Testing, Andrew. Oh, flying right at him, over my head. Come on, please land. Well, it's disappearing now, but that was an African monarch butterfly. Very, very pretty butterfly. And in North America, you also have a monarch, an American monarch, and that is the largest migration of butterfly in area in the world. And it's a very interesting migration because it is a a generational migration, which is incredible for me. So one generation will move this far and then die and pupate, the next generation until they get across, and then they turn around and go back again. So very, very interesting. One of the few generational migrations in the world. So we were watching that Eddie really chew on that marula, and Rita, who's from Johannesburg in South Africa, so she said she knew elephants eat bark, but she never seen one eat wood like that. Well, and she was wondering why in particular. Well, Rita, he wasn't eating the very small pieces of wood, so a lot of that nutrients is being pumped into those little edges, and especially now after we're at the growing season now, coming into the rainy season, so a lot of the trees will be focusing quite a lot of nutrients and minerals onto the ends, those little points that are growing. So those little branchlets, they're not proper branches, will have quite a lot of juiciness in them for an elephant. Those who've been watching for a while will notice I have a pet name for hyena. I call all hyena Howard, and Julia in Houston is asking, why do you call all hyenas Howard, Brent? Well, Julia, hello. Better than telling you, since it is fireside chat this evening, I will show you when I get to fireside chat why all hyenas are called Howard to me. And a little male giraffe. There's another one behind, but you can't really see him just yet. Just having a look at us, making sure we're not posing a threat. There's so many giraffe around at the moment. When I first arrived on Djuma, honestly, for the first 3 months, I think I had more leopard sightings than giraffe sightings. And at the moment, we're not having many leopard sightings, but we are having lots of giraffe sightings. Now, there might be a few more down behind him. And you can see this young male is particularly pale. And so there is quite a bit of variation in the individuals. Some will have darker splodges than others, but there is a tendency towards darkening, as specifically in males as they get older. And let's see who can remember where giraffe, the name giraffe, comes from originally. And if you do remember, send us the answers with the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or email us questions at WildEarthTV. And don't forget to tell us whereabouts you are in the world. We love to know from which far-flung corner you might be joining us on a live African safari. So I'm going to help out Commander Bond here. Wendy from St. Petersburg in Florida was asking how many subspecies of giraffe there are. I'm just trying to remember now. I think they're probably about 7 or 8. Let's see if I can. There's the southern giraffe, which we're looking at now. There is the what's the one in the Luangwa Valley? Oh, I can't remember now. Thornycroft's. Thornycroft's giraffe, Maasai giraffe, reticulated giraffe, and Rothschild's giraffe are the 5. I think I'm missing a few though. Let's have a look if the big book's got any clues to that. Oh, where are you going? We're talking about you. Just giving a good squiz at us. Now these are definitely subspecies because all of them can mate and produce viable offspring. There we go, giraffes. Taxomic. 9 subspecies have been listed. So, and I see a lot of these. This book is quite old. Some of these subspecies have been proved incorrect. So theoretically, I think there are only 6 now. But so there were 2 said to be in southern Africa, which was sorry, go. I'm gonna be on the move. I've heard something on the radio. Copy text. May I make my way?
Yeah, sure, you will.
I wonder what it is. I heard it, but it's definitely something interesting enough to leave giraffe alone for. But so, there was said to be 2 subspecies in southern Africa in the 70s, but I know for a fact now that that is not the case. But I will try to remember all the species. But I think how many did we get to there, Andrew? 6. Thornycroft's, Rothschild, reticulated, southern, Maasai, and one other. But so there are only 2 members of the sort of whole family giraffe, and that's all the giraffe and its subspecies. And the okapi. Okapi is one of the animals I think is very high on my bucket list to see in the wild, and incredibly difficult. It lives in probably one of the most inaccessible parts of Africa, between the Congo and the Cross River, in what was back in the day Zaire, now the Democratic Republic of Congo. And it is a funny looking beast, the okapi. So what we're racing to is right on our boundary, so I'm going to be going quite quickly. So while we do that, we're going to go see James and what he's got on the walk.
Okay, sorry, apparently you couldn't hear me there. Welcome back. Right, you've got me now. Excellent news. Sorry you couldn't hear me. Something went wrong. Obviously, it's not wrong anymore. Now, you don't want to be driving with Brent at a great speed because you are likely to get possibly a serious case of motion sickness. Very exciting that he's going to something exciting. I don't know what it is. But while he's doing that, we'll take a sedate look at this rather marvelous set of grass here. It is called Arathusa superba, or the sawtooth lovegrass, and it's called sawtooth because obviously it's got sort of teeth, and it's called a lovegrass. All the Arathusa species are called lovegrass because the seed inside these inflorescences is heart-shaped. Isn't that nice? And there are lots and lots of different kinds of Arathusa species around the world, and especially here. And this one is my favorite. It's called the superba, or the sawtooth lovegrass. Right, now you may lose a picture very slightly as Brian stands up, because the aerial will twist, and then we're going to go and show you a tree just over there. Right. Now, MJ, that is the second grass species we've shown you today, and the other one was of course Hypothelia dissoluta, the yellow thatching grass, and you want to know if that's what they use to make reed baskets and things. No, MJ, they mainly use Phragmites, which is a proper reed, and it's found in rivers. And the reason it's better for baskets and that sort of thing is that it's got a kind of spongy inside, and that spongy inside makes it last a lot longer, first of all. And second of all, you can twist it into different shapes that you can't do with a lot of the grass. The grass eventually snaps. If you try and weave out of a dry straw or something like that, it will snap. It's not very robust because it's pretty much hollow inside. Right. Here we have a marula tree, and I'm sure you were listening to all those cicadas make an enormous noise, and they've all stopped because they recognize that we are a predator, and they're amazingly clever at just ceasing their noise every time they feel like they're under threat. That's shouting. So ventriloquistic, and because of that, they're able to shout and not be eaten. I don't know if you were with us this morning. If you weren't, well, you were probably asleep, and that's fair enough. So sorry, we keep losing our signal. We don't really understand why, but we'll keep walking in this direction. Seems to be okay. Norm, you want to know, is it very dry, first of all, and B, is it normally this dry at this time of year? Norm, what I'm going to try and do is get you into where we can see the incredible cloud build up that's happening behind us. I don't think it's going to rain today. Kind of situation is totally normal. So if we turn around and we show you into the sky there, you can see an enormous amount of grey, stormy build-up. Now, Norm, that's totally normal for this time of year. I don't think it's going to rain on us. This is perfectly normal dry season weather. Everybody thinks as soon as the spring starts that, you know, come September or October, it's going to be a deluge, and if it doesn't deluge immediately, then we're obviously in some kind of that actually bring the proper sort of flushes of grass. Normally don't come before sort of. So this kind of dry situation is totally normal for this part of in November, and perhaps halfway through November, then we're going to be in trouble. While we're wandering along looking for the next interesting little piece of ecology, Yuri in the Netherlands, just watch this big stump here. Yuri in the Netherlands, you want to know how I became a ranger and what on earth, or how long I've been out here and what I want to do for the rest of my life. Well, Yuri, there's quite a lot of questions in that. I'll give you the very broad strokes. I became a ranger. I wasn't going to ever become a ranger. I was going to be a guitar player. That's what I wanted to do as a profession. And I had a girlfriend at one stage who was, shall we say, strong-willed. in many respects, and she said that we were going to be rangers, and at the time I didn't know what a game ranger did. That was when I was about 23. I thought maybe he counted grasses or animals or something like that. And I thought what would happen was that at our interview I would be immediately spotted as a fraud, and they'd keep her and send me away, and I'd go and play the guitar and she'd be in the bush and we'd be separated and all my problems would be solved. Needless to say, that didn't happen, and a little while later I suddenly found myself in this whole new world of magnificent discovery, the world that I find, that I'm trying to share with you here, where there's an entire ecosystem in a funny piece of gnarled wood that's been dug up by an elephant, full of termites and different kinds of animals. There are the birds and the different calls that they make and the incredible scenery that we get all around us. So Yuri, I always wanted to live in a beautiful place. I've always been inspired by natural beauty, but in terms of this kind of job, I didn't really know I was going to do this till I was about 23 or so. But that's not too late. I know some people who started doing this job at over 40, which of course is very old indeed. It's not really. I'm only a year away from that. Now, training wise, you don't really need to do a degree, but it does help. I find it just helps you to learn how to think. And what do I want to do for the rest of my life? Well, this is quite a lot of fun doing this right now for the rest of my life. So for now, I'm very happy doing this. We'll see how long it lasts. It's a rather job. Thank you, Yuri. In the Netherlands, you sound like an extremely interested fellow in this kind of life. And I hope that you're able to come out here one day. There's some dwarfs there. Can you see them just sticking their little heads out? I don't know if you're going to be able to pick them up on the camera, Brian.
Yeah,
you got them? Okay, so Brian will just steady himself and he'll punch the zoom as hard as he can, and we'll see if we can get those little dwarf mongoose sitting, doing exactly what dwarf mongoose do at this time of the day. I like to say they keep kind of, well, I don't suppose they are French hours at all, but they keep leisurely hours. They don't like to strain themselves. They come out only once the sun is well up. Then they warm themselves and do their sort of morning constitutionals on the outside of the termite mound that they live in. And they go off and forage for a while, probably sleep during the heat of the day. And then before the sun goes down, they come back and they have their evening constitutionals. And as soon as it's dark, safe in the middle of the mound. Let's see if we can get a bit closer to them. I'm not sure that we'll be able to, but let's try. They are very aware, and they will probably start alarm calling at me pretty soon. If not at me, certainly at Brian, because he is, well, I mean, he's pretty tall anyway, and with the aerial sticking up above him, he's positively giraffe-like. So we're going to not, one of the most important things, you see they have disappeared. One of the most important things with animals, we'll try and get a bit closer and then entice them out, is that because they see us as a threat, it's very important that you never approach them head on. Well, not if you want to view them. If you want them to run away, then you can approach them head on and clap your hands and make a big noise. But if you want to view animals, it's important that they don't see you as a threat. So if for example, if there was a giraffe over there and we wanted to get a bit closer to it, what we would do is just kind of circle around. We wouldn't walk straight at it, because that's kind of a threatening behavior, and they would run away. So we're going to circle around slowly towards the termite mound, and then I'm going to try and make, well, I'm actually going to get Brian to make the example of the dwarf mongoose call. You remember, you know how to do that. You can see one just sticking his head out. Is that one of them there, watching us? There we go, look at that little fellow watching us. Can you see him?
Steady and I can punch him.
Little dwarf mongoose. And if Brent is taking you where I hope and think he might be taking you, and I don't know this for sure at all, these things Oh, he's not taking you anywhere at the moment. Alright, I'm not going to say anything. I've been told I'm not allowed to say anything at the moment. Never mind. I have my suspicions, but I'm not going to say anything. Okay. There's another one. Another dwarf mongoose there. So, the most famous cousin, of course, of the dwarf mongoose is the suricate or meerkat, and they have a pretty similar sort of social structure as far as I'm aware. Now, I'm going to defer to Brian here because he spent a huge amount of time with meerkats in the Kalahari. So Mike in Tampa, Florida, also sounds like a fun place to live. I think that they are pretty much the same. Is that right, Brian?
Very similar.
Very similar. They'll have an alpha pair, which will do most of the breeding. They might have a beta pair that could breed, but I suspect sometimes those pups would be killed, and they're very similar to some of the canids that we get out here. They do the same sort of thing. So we've got that one watching us there, and these will be two different troops of mongoose. They won't be the same. There'll be two, and they're not that territorial, but they can be a little bit territorial. So we've got the one still watching us from there, and the other one on the larger mound there. So that gives you an idea of kind of the closeness of the two troops. Unless that chap there may have been excluded from the mound because he was out foraging, and perhaps he's kind of got stuck there. We'll have temporary refuges in their sort of home range, and maybe he's into a temporary refuge because he saw us coming. Same goes for those guys. I'm not sure which is the main home. Just up there, we've got some magpie shrikes. And those magpie shrikes are not that noise that you can hear. I'm not sure if you can hear that. That's called a crested barbet. Beautiful coloured yellow, red, black and orange bird. There he is on the top. You got him, Brian?
No, I'm on
in the middle there. They're obviously sitting listening to their Sunday song from the crested barbet. Not a particularly varied Sunday song, I have to say. In fact, not a very exciting song at all. There he is, the crested barbet. Beautiful bird, very scruffy. Right, let's continue down this path. Very interesting how many different animals out here have learned to kind of live in a community, and I find it fascinating. Lots of birds, so those magpie shrikes you were looking at there, they live in a sort of communal breeding colony. The dwarf mongoose, obviously a lot of the canids. The cats, however, are a notable exception. They don't like, the only social cats in the world are, of course, the lions. Cheetahs a little bit. And it's so often why domestic cats that live together fight with each other, because they're not actually evolved to be social. They evolved from the African wildcat, which is a cat that lives here, and grew up, they're actually very similar to a domestic cat, but they're completely solitary. Yuri, age 17 in the Netherlands, you say you are going to try and gather some money to come out here one day, perhaps on your way to see your girlfriend in Australia. Yuri, you're a young man to have a girlfriend so far away from you. Yes, that's another subject we can get into later, perhaps. Well, just the two of us. And That's serious commitment, Yuri. Good for you. Then you also want to know, have I ever been attacked by a wild animal out here? No, I haven't. I've been charged by one or two that have taken exception to me being around. So I've had a leopard charge at me. I've had one or two lions growl at me. I've had one or two buffalo take a step or two closer to me, and there's been the odd elephant to which I've got a little bit close, but I've never been actually attacked. You've got to really irritate an animal. Watch out there, Brian. You've got to really irritate an animal in order to make it attack you. You must remember, most things out here just want to be away from us. They don't want to walk towards us. They don't want to be around us. And so you just have to be careful. So while we're walking along, you'll see suddenly sometimes I'll turn my head away and I'll look away from you and just scan around. And as long as you're aware all the time. So if we saw an elephant up ahead there, it would be our duty to make sure that we saw him, hopefully before he saw us. If he had seen us and was looking at us, we'd assess his behavior, and if he looked like he was unhappy, we'd just kind of walk slowly away into the bush. What would be stupid would be to walk towards him, and if he then showed like he was upset, keep walking towards him. That's the kind of behavior that will eventually get you attacked. But otherwise, if you're careful enough, chances are that you won't be attacked. There's always the chance that you could be, because you could make a mistake, or an animal could be injured or hurt when you come across it, and that would make it upset and angry. But it's just the same as, say, living where you live in the Netherlands. You can always have an accident. You can fall off your bicycle, you can fall off a skateboard, you can be hit by a car sometimes. These things happen, and it's the same out here. Generally though, it's not a particularly dangerous place to be as long as you're aware of what's going on. There is a giraffe. That's what Brent was looking at earlier. Well, not with you. He told me to come into this area and we didn't see the giraffe he was looking at. I can see a large giraffe in the clearings here. We're just going to walk to the edge of it. And while we're doing that, I just have to tell you, we're now in a grove of silver cluster leaf trees, and they're just coming into flower. Now, what I want to describe to you is the smell of these flowers. There is the giraffe. Now, the smell of these flowers can be best described as follows. Brent Leo Smith has a pair of boots that are very, very old. They're very old, and he has worn them extensively on many walks in the forest with no socks on them. Now those boots, I have seen paint strip off walls next to those boots, and they're roughly the same smell as the flowers on the silver cluster leaf tree. They really are utterly disgusting smelling things. And so it's a nervous time of the year when you're walking through the bush hoping you won't walk into a smelly silver cluster leaf tree. So beautiful giraffe there now, and you can just see exactly what I was talking about with the fact that they are so curious about us. Now, what we'll do, instead of walking straight towards him, we'll test my theory, and we'll walk off basically to the right hand side of your screen and see if we can't get a little bit closer by moving to the right and then a little bit closer to him. Here we go. All around the birds are calling. Beautiful kind of warmth about the summer air. So one of the things we listen to when we're walking is for alarm calls, obviously, because alarm calls of different birds and squirrels will alert us to the different sounds or different possible threats there are in the area. There that giraffe goes. He's not very pleased with us. There, he stopped. So we'll just stop here. And now, Kathy, you want to know how on earth we tell the difference between the normal bird call and a sort of alarm call. Kathy, the way we do that is experience mainly, but as a basic rule of thumb, an alarm call will normally be totally different from the sort of standard issue call, and it will also be strident and angry. You can definitely hear the tone is quite angry. So the most obvious is the rattling testicular. and the rattling testicular, when it's not alarm calling, goes chee chee chit 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 chee chee chick chick chick. When it's alarming, it goes pee 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 pee, and it sounds alarmed. You wouldn't know that if someone hadn't told you. But there's definitely experience needed when you're assessing alarm calls. Well, he's not that happy, that little fellow, so we'll just carry on along here. He's melting into some thicker bush, and there is an impala just across this clearing here. Now, we've just been looking at some giraffe. This morning we were hoping to find a leopard that was calling around us. I wouldn't mind seeing a leopard right now. In fact, Brian, it's not a leopard, but I just wonder if you can show us what you have to look out for while you're walking. Can you see what I'm looking at?
I think so.
Yes. So just look on your screen there, everybody, and you can see the bottom of 1 or 2 or 3 animals. And there are lots of impala in here, and also obviously the back end of a zebra. This is just behind that cluster leaf tree. So we'll walk a little closer, and while we're doing that, just looking around. Oh yes. Sorry, Jim, I forgot your question. And Jim, you wanted to know basically what happens with would a leopard ever take a giraffe? Would say an injured or young giraffe? Jim, without being facetious, it does depend very much on the leopard. So a big male leopard, they've been recorded once or twice taking fully grown adult giraffe cows. How they manage that, I just don't know. But absolutely, a big male leopard would take a small giraffe if it was unprotected, though. But remember, the mothers are very protective, and if they were injured, they could fall prey to a leopard. But a healthy young giraffe, very unlikely that a leopard would ever be able to take it. Certainly not a female. Would have to be a big male, probably. But they're very well protected by their mothers. So, it does depend very much on the leopard.